Hello, Hartford, New York, and the neighboring suburbs and nations. Tomorrow there's a meeting in Hartford regarding all the shootings. For years, Hartford's very small. You could walk across it, you know what I mean, and around it in a day. I mean, pretty sure, you know what I mean. And not by accident, this is where George Washington had to come to right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War to secure the means to win the physical battle, the last physical battle of the Revolutionary War. Him and the French general together, and the unity of our founders was they had to hide it and pretend it was a different nature of unity to even survive, because they had so many crazy laws that no one had free speech. They had other speech. And that was engineered because they were engineering consciously our identity of value progression as identity, as a consciously, willfully, as a negative value nature relationship to the identity of value nature progression. That both positive and negative value nature have a progressively valuable relationship to. As identity formed as negative value nature, or as identity formed as positive value nature. But this is in relationship to a value nature system that is tactically authoritative and ulterior from the ones today. In other words, they have news article about this meeting coming up. Also, they show how the kids walk through Hartford, and they're blaming on drug dealers and stuff like that. Those people are stuck in spots. Not everyone can. In other words, there are narratives about, oh, you can do anything, just work hard, give up your, they leave out how that divides family members. People have to work. They have to have their kids to take care of their kids. The time there is being exploited. The things we need to say, like obviously, it's pseudo-positive to separate families from kids. But that's states and areas already in collusion separating families from kids in relationship to negative value nature progressions, because we have a tactically denatured relationship to nature that was forced since before our founders person forced. These divide these. This is our value, inherently, actively, and progressively. In other words, so they need to have community conversations like that because they lead to the same thing, defenses of positions with those treatments, which is as a theater, as the defending that you can't defend us from the nature of criminal insidious that was originally and still overt criminal enterprises, natures of business only here because here and there we were forced to trade center agreements in relationships to their roles was pseudo-positive in relationship to unity, where that unity was sick there and here. In other words, we're still in the infrastructure that was forced since before our founders' births to cause negative value nature progressions, tactically denatured relationship to nature, forcing not just Native Americans, forcing all to different roles, blaming on others and on selves, the actual causes for negative nature progressions. These are sick things. Boxing. You think if they didn't want to kill the Native Americans, they could have, but they needed the means. This is to perpetually control all modern nations from a semi-ancient organized crime method too, because they knew defenses of positions in relationship to databases and tactically degraded value nature relationship of the campus martias as value in relationship to what is it called? To nature itself. In other words, campus martias is a value to nature because it was revealed before criminal influences, criminal foreign influences. Modern nations had campus martius that was criminally foreign influence tactically to have that defended, to keep all as Oz, negative value nature Oz, which is not positive three ways onto itself, our nature, which is a trinity, which science reveals. One way alone is the one that heals. So, regarding Hartford and the meeting coming up tomorrow, and regarding how to treat the problem with the shootings, all the things off the record. Officer got stabbed. A female officer by a female too, which is sad both ways. Because you hear walking in the hallway like that, because the 99.9% of the crimes, think about it, with colonization, those crazy laws, the witch trials and stuff like that, they weren't caused by drugs. They were caused by a crime method that's causing 99.9% of the crimes, only letting them realize all to roles, because then all are breaching fronts. You can't see through that because everyone's invested, needing to tell the same lies, needing to hide the same natures from correlation, valuing correlation nature hurt more and more. So we don't have mandated law followed. We don't have it. We need we have natures of policing that are lawyers at the same time, experts of the law, with the agencies in relationship to the trade center. As hundreds of nations forced to share agreements, you can't defend the natures of those agreements and their roles with industries, and also at the same time from what exploits that with areas and states, maintain as live progression, cover up natures and roles, needs and nature. In other words, down to the really sick, messed up American history, how simple it is. In other words, they make it hurt and pretend to be against that because they're not explaining the organized crime method. No human has our nature want to be part of slavery, want to be even around them. The reason other was motivated was forced, but it was forced methodically, consciously keeping everyone blaming on other and others non-selves. That's why they have witch trials. That's why they blame it on other, like drugs. It's also because they knew that we have psychology recorded to confess with identity theft crimes, roles with branches, areas, and states maintained criminally foreign influence, needing to hide that. Shared policing, where an interbranch roles with psychology. Their delusions raw. Their database organized crime methods roles raw. Their identity thefts roles raw. Their pseudo health care, all kinds of rackets, and nature's needing to defend that then. See, because nature forces negative value nature progressions, not just lie progressions. Nature forces them to hide from correlation to the value correlation nature hurt. The devil knew that they would all standing database relationships would have and per method making them need to hide finite body of value and progressive lies together. Like our side was with trade center crime rules. The coalition was with trade center crime rules when they came with shock and awe. That's not. There are proofs that George Bush didn't think up shock and awe. But in other words, they're reacting to what is a sick nature because each nation is sick together, blaming other than with suit and tie nations counters to it, appreciating as fact treatment nature, same repeated mistreatments of each of the religions, physical delusions not demonstrated. They, sequence nature. The Old Testament and the Quran are written knowing that they're going to have sequence, lie progression, cover nature, sequence shifting, justification natures, with convictions needing to obfuscate, make not understood, keep not understood the first part of the Quran, the first part of the Old Testament. First part of the Old Testament says all you need to know and just understand is here. Where the sciences come together, sharing an identity. So what I'm trying to say about Hartford, in summary, this is an organized crime conversation, but it's not against the A gang or A to Z gang, which are consciously, methodically maintained in relationship to the pseudo-positive of each branch individually. When they say politics, they make convictions and they blame on politics because we have shared policing. You can't get into the quality of fact treatment nature without giving that up. And obviously they have agreements where they can't tell on our police here and there, and they have needs for that, and they have that kept through nations because excuse me. Simultaneously, while we have nations distinctly tortured, distinctly from a tactically natured base in relationship to nature, at the same time, they have non-distinctly this fluent through our nations, needing to keep originally still what they had everyone built consciously blaming other another, even kings, huzzahs, even queens, because they came through Campus Marcius as the only sophistication seen, discerned, realized. At the same time, areas and states overt victims, forced only let be predators. You know what I'm saying? Everyone was a fact treatment nature slavery. You see, and a way to come out of it is to come out of the tactically denatured relationship to nature, which we know is better than the suburbs. And we know we begin where that isn't even a value. And when you look there, when you look at what the problem is with Hartford, you could, and when you understand our history, this is why George Washington had to leave slavery. He didn't have the strength. His own slavery had to leave overt slavery in Hartford, Wethersfield, Connecticut. That's why we have shootings today. Not because of it was short or long ago, because the education state criminally foreign influenced value of Campus Marcius, the value of science's relationship to and as the value of our fact treatment nature, with and as the value of areas. So now our fact treatment nature has stayed lethal hadiths as value for space nature transfer, a negative value nature relationship to the identity of nature, which is only positive to itself when it is positive to what is ground's value, that including water, and what is active body of value discernment, and what is progression's value discernment. Now, this is nature of value nature relationship, identity of value, progression, value discernment. Now, nature. See, criminal insidiousness nature is in nature. Correlation nature is in nature. The Trinity. It's a Trinity nature. Correlation nature. Science reveals we have each of the sciences tactically obfuscated since semi-ancient times. This just reminds. That's not even debatable. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm trying to say, when you try to tell someone who the passions regarding American history, regarding overt, forsaken, in other words, we have criminally foreign influence since before our founders' birth, forced without slavery, witch trial, crazy things, forced laws. Forced home styles, colonial ranch, raised ranch, plots, tactically flattened out, denatured, Relationship to nature, space value. All they put out the waters, they made everything not overtly tactically denatured. Everything else theater, denatured too. Landscape theater, even down to the bugs. I see an article I saw on the Amazon rainforest from National Geographic. The guy almost died. He came back. He had so many bugs on him, and like a bacterial infection wouldn't go away. You know, I hope that guy's aware. I think he was getting better at that point. But it was unbelievable. In other words, there are proofs that the reason we had nature, that they even use bugs because their method with their motivations were not to kill everybody. Their motivations were to employ the entire species to roles causing negative value nature progressions as they only let realize sophistication in relationship to what the devil is all about, an organized crime method that stays pseudo sophistication nature valued because it knew how that it was going to make branches as line progression cover up natures in relationship to databases. It knew that it would have to defend those natures. It knew how to all areas of states. So with what was all those roles in interests invested in natures invested, blaming others the causes, and then having the solutions handed to them was what was his misfluent through this. All that ignored as retreats, forced defenses. Like when parents have to go to work real hard and their kids live, for example, right next to Hartford Hospital. There's porches that just open. You come out your front door, boom, you're in the middle of Hartford, and on the sidewalk, on the street right there. Fans. They have bad drug gangs and stuff like that, in collusion with the doctors with those places, and they're especially probate courts. This is how the elderly homes in our means to now demonstrate recorded criminally foreign influenced infrastructural pathology, relationships to nature means a system of value nature system that didn't reach out to everyone. It's not, and then just saying, see what is already invested as pseudo positive defenses that needs to pretend things handed. We have tactically simultaneously maintain criminally foreign influence interscience, and this is against each individual grouped together progressively and sequentially, maintaining correlation nature, even kings, even presidents, easier. See what's coming up, and see means to keep it, states and areas keeping it, pseudo-positive defenses, reliances upon that further and further, fake sides, reliances. In other words, fake difference too between the different overt criminal enterprises internation. See the suits and ties, the counters to it, same thing. Lost religions, the right to religion. We have the same arguments repeated and repeated. The same people quoting, who is it? Whoever said that. Insanity is repeating things to the same result each time. Those are the people doing it. Science reveals evolution instantly by revealing not just native rights. See now, sometimes a lot of natives still poor, but in other words, tactically nature relationships to nature too. Even water is tactically where it looks better than ours. It's not deep enough. It's all denatured. No one remembers what the ancients had led water cultivated. They had all kinds of life forms in the books before these deep ponds that keep dumping into the pond. The crawfish, the bass eat them. Little nooks, and then the rain comes, they go more fish get into the pond. You know what I'm saying? In other words, that's where you make fish out of nowhere. Especially disgusting. The oceans, I hear about plastic going in all. Imagine how long oil goes in, and then it just spreads out. It's a little piece, that adds up. You know what I'm saying? We still have, in other words, you can't afford things through this system. We even have bricks today that are not as good as they used to make before our founders' births. In other words, they used to make hard. Now we're just like we're in a value nature system and they continue to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, like criminal insidiousness natures. As fact, with politics, as the fact, treatment, nature, style, appreciation for that, interbranch, recorded, in collusion with them, juxtaposed with crime acts sequentially timed because of the way they're exploiting each age of fact, treatment, nature. Like we have a Rick Chanfillon and others that were directed to pretend. I'm pretty positive he was never in my class. Never said me I ever had a conversation with him. Like when I was in grammar school, they start then. This is tied to the principal sex offender just sentenced. The same school has more interbranch recorded with rape threats since before that, where they forced to sustain. They forced me not to tell on that by arresting me and charging me with harassment and by lying about the sequence and about all the calls made to me first and to us. In other words, in confessions, they left out too. Mike Levine recorded, Joshua Julian also recorded, confessed involved with the identity theft clicks. See, we have natures of police sharing policing of stores and areas where if they we find out, it's easy for us to just tell the truth. But when we do that, now it's tied to big complicated money and positions, time and positions at the trade center agreement level, where they're all faking integrity, and they're reliant upon that because there and here they're both exploiting it different ways, and no one's going to give quality fact treatment nature because of it. Like in relationship to DACA, roles with the Russians and stuff with that, narratives with the media and stuff like that. When that's that's not how you counter pseudosciences with nuclear weapons as the alternative to pseudo peace, and where science reveals we're in a negative value nature progression as an identity of negative value nature progression that each modern nation is together. It's going to come right through sides. It's not just about markets. In other words, you see people fleeing their homeland, and all that. In other words, it's obvious common sense, not good to separate families, but at the same time, we have states and areas. New York, when you stack people in that height like that, and you call that free, then you have to lie. Then you have to hide roles exploiting, indifferent to, and worse, criminal foreign influence, physical delusions, justifying people stacking New York City throughout because the masses of it, pinning natures, victims of intercampuses maintained, again, against each age of fact treatment nature. This person's parents have insights into how that system works and how to get hurt less by it. Interbranch families, their kids. This knows that they're going to be looking out for their kids, exploits them through that. In other words, uses them, maintains everyone criminally foreign influenced, especially people approach you with loaded questions. that you don't know. That's just tied to an identity theft crime. See how black was forced to be an identity other than it is? As an identity, the reason, what is really black, our eyes, our black pupils. What is really white, our whites of eyes. Deeper than the depths of space and hotter than the sun. Warmer than the sun is clear. It means appear. See, read the Santa Claus. It stands right here. Use correlation. It's like oxygen is invisible, it's still discernible, just like the Santa Claus. You guys will see. So this is an organized crime conversation. About, in other words, to have it right. Because that's what's the problem with Hartford, Connecticut. Pseudo-positive defenses, telling little kids not to think. Correlation, organized crime is not complicated. This organized crime, it's just extensive. Just attack. In other words, to understand it, you have to use what is true always and noting exceptions simultaneously. This shows you that the identity of our nature is being exploited, and that was causing negative value nature progressions. And it was already being exploited because before our founder's birth, this pathology for Hartford was set up. This is why George Washington could only semi-counter extort that left with slavery overt right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. See the house with the crow's nest on it, meaning the porch above it on Zion Street, or that's where it turns into Zion Street, but on the corner of Trinity College, the southwest corner, Fairfield Avenue. And it cuts through New Britain Avenue, which has cuts into two parts there. See, now this is tied to every position with databases like the fire departments and stuff like that. See, these are people that just want to do jobs. They want to, not be that bottom that is worse than free, which is the top is. So the bottom is going to keep getting worse. And what hides that is the roles for it in the next phase. In other words, these are not means. The zoning laws, the means to infrastructure, the means to. Well, we don't have clean water because we should have the water clean and a level higher, and then you have the water that separate for where you need to use water because you have chemicals or whatever like that. You have to dump it in that junk. You know what I'm saying? Have that go away from what goes back to sea, which is probably needs the fresh water for evolution. Because when there's not evolution, when the volume of positive nature that is also positive onto itself here is not allowed to increase, that's what negative value nature is. It forced from here lethal IDs. See, this is so. To all these things are tied to natures of organized crime associated with criminal insidiousness nature. So they need us not to understand nature. They have right click on 2016 Word. They have nature, everything else except for us in their definition. Every science is with physical delusions, is with roles obfuscating quality fact treatment nature needed to have not just the defenses of ourselves, but needed to reveal what the course of evolution, which doesn't come through these natures of jobs and industries. Again, and of relationships to nature. So if Hartford wants to not do, so then they have police speaking for the law. And they're not allowed to speak for the law. So why are they speaking for the law? They should admit, as recorded to correlation, that they're juxtaposed with other police that have no integrity. And they can't have this conversation. So they, in other words, but they're not letting things reported. They're breaking mandated law because they invested themselves through what starts real young. See how before they had those kids walking in the narratives with the news, recorded criminally involved intercity with the Leahy family, with other doctors who are investigators, with Trade Center investigators, with agencies and their family members involved criminally with the sex offender principal, with worse, first still with the schools, first sustaining him, as Sandy Hook investigators and roles with doctors and stuff tied to the schools because your database roles with the fire departments with Russians, etc. So, if you want to solve all answers and not invest everybody to more time in positions, torture. See torture. See how torture was brought in to counter criminal insidiousness natures and lies and things like that, because that was maintained because they needed to have torture defended. These are constitutional affronts. They need to have religion claim what it's maintained, claim what it's not. Interscience is the teaching of the religions is recorded criminally foreign influence. Physical delusion is raw. Criminally foreign influenced, uncharged. You can't be legalized criminal insidiousness nature as modern nations. They're everyone's victim predator. What really made witch trials, made roles motivated to even take part with slavery, would invest in everybody to a value nature system, tactically ulterior from the one that causes positive value nature progressions or causes negative value nature progressions. And it only causes positive value nature progressions when we are when we are evaluating as Earth's value, when we are evaluating the ground, active body of value discernment, and progression's value of discernment, relationship to the complete identity of space, existence / space, which is the same identity but distinctly non-distinctly. Just like our identity is distinctly the identity of our existence, as it was when we were kids, but that body's gone. So we're only a semi-nature of space because this is manifest because we are the overall Trinity's relationship to itself as a Trinity to all parts of itself, smaller than the smallest parts, finite part of ourselves. It is simultaneously bigger than all things of space nature at once, as what is bonded onto to it as the value, the progressive value nature relationship to itself, the identity of existence / space as value. This is those two identities of it, two semi-nature identities of itself bonding matter, made planets, distinctly and non-distinctly throughout space, because the identity of existence is distinctly and non-distinctly onto as the value of all parts of itself. To simply admit this, to simply not be blaming on individual, but blaming on individual premises treatments. You see, when there's off preemptively, offensively, pretending all these are good people, so they're investing people to justify good, pseudo positive. In other words, they're forcing fights. Otherwise, they're forcing indifference and worse, because they're forcing. All we need is recording to make evolution. It shows that interbranch actors like two Mendez brothers and other police before them forging names, switching names, using Wethersfield Police Department in court also, in collusion with them, with other retired and standing detectives, associated further with the principal sex offender and with ones associated with my past and previous and new neighbors associated with the campuses and with this Dylan guy. See, with that, no, we have all the evidence we need. We just need to be able to report things. This is going to bring people like Hartford, the police and stuff like that. They leave out about how they force people to deal with psychologists. And what they do is forge names, attach you to fake conversations with them, and they do that with their interbranch drug clicks with various natures of courts, especially with the probate court, one-way court. They also have crimes with KKK themed, Confederate flag themed with the child offenders. And that's also uses of a black doctor with this. And for how they're just, we'll examine this. In other words, so we need someone who's not just talking to be role as a tool, as a job, criminally foreign influence, which is what, and victim predator, tactically pseudo-educated. Then they need to pretend it's personal. People have, I'm not a computer guy. People have all kinds of, I'm not, all kinds of talents I don't have. That, in other words, I could demonstrate how it's recorded, how there's database solution stacking, sequence shifts. These are also tied to a proven sequence shift in the Ninth Circuit with the same Leahy family, people with Hartford Hospital, other hospitals. Detective Samuda pretended he arrested me with New Britain Superior Court, with the drug clicks, evidence fabrication nature, identity theft clicks tied to this Leahy family that pretended that the whole family working in the triage of a hospital, where they have psychology people there who are also police. These are also investigated trade center awareness roles. In other words, these are also people associated with federal criminals who were co-defendants of former director of the FBI. They're having sequence shifts, roles defended by having other pretended proper treatments of Comey issues and of Mueller. Sequence shifting, motivations being made because they were using their roles with fake news before that, preventing mandated law and stealing people's voices multi-front with the courts doing it. We still have slavery. You see what I'm saying? But we don't have it allowed anything but blame on other and others. We have them using pretended care against prejudice consciously too, recorded. So they need to have those disagreements, not letting how was this recorded, demonstrated. So they have, forget about it. We have Paul Manafort tied to a Peruta family and to a Russian woman associated with Hartford Hospital, repeated, recorded, and confessed, involved with crimes with fire departments, with the doctors, foreign and domestic. Ones from other nations, judges from various natures of courts, forging and switching names, with the Connecticut courts tied to the click with the fake, with the sequence shift proven from inside the Ninth Circuit in the Trade Center attack context. Also, a Scalora family recorded and confessed involved with crimes with intercity schools with police, interbranch, identity theft clicks, houses with a CCSU tied campus and businesses next to that. On Franklin Avenue. Involved various ways. They attach people just to evidence perception crime roles with them, evidence perception bodies, criminal, and victim predators, but predators. So if they can admit that, they need to let laws truth told. They need to not stand up and ask what they think they should do about it, because all they're doing is vesting people work. We're stuck. They're letting sustained. We should have immediate reliefs. Now, I'm not a lawyer, not a police firm, not a criminal. Injunctive relief is what we need. which is a whole bunch of simultaneous reactions to the simultaneous imposition juxtaposed upon the people intercity, which cities are natures, like a suburb is a city too. It's a nature of city that were specifically tactically denatured commonly, non-distinctly, in other words. And to hide, and in other words, distinctly made tortured so no one could see that and discern it. Everyone's looking through comparison nature. To overcome that, we have to claim the needs for reliefs. We don't have to have it. If someone wants to deny that, then they're saying that's it. That's what you're getting, and that's, in other words, if you say, okay, we want to counter this because it's prejudice. Now that's divide and conquer. That's what they want, because color didn't force this. Sick internation people did, of every color, little minority. They took over internation sciences to perpetually bring modern nations to roles with defending criminally re-engineered campus marcias. They knew that would cause negative value nature progressions they could perpetually exploit. Identities of nature, identities together. Yeah, the way is clear. So, little rap guy, that's why he's all about establishing the counter extortion of New York City and of Hartford and of the neighboring suburbs and nations, because they are all already extorted by the devil, but being used by them. In this cartoon, little rap guy and friends. They're going to be making a movie. They're making plays. So you understand what the devil was looking at when they were dividing the Native Americans. They were dividing the nature of our identity's relationship to itself as value, as nature, invested to needs and nature's exploiting it and blaming the causes of it on others and ourselves. 99.9% of the crimes are caused by this. In other words, there's no excuse for shooting someone, but there's no excuse what's being done to those shooters first. In other words, there are excuses they have in relationship to the narratives being pinned on them, with the convictions regarding treatments of them once they go into these courts, because these courts were already recorded through time with identity thefts, multi-front, having fake news while they prevent people's speech and attach them to fake arrests into their databases, fake relationships to doctors as kids, as adults, report fake things in the newspaper. Christine I went to school with. I had one class with, I had to stay back. This is also because of drugs and games they had with the drugs and the crimes with the kids, with their identity thefts, because of the extended family members, a whole bunch of brothers tied to a probate judge, and to cliques like that, into a branch, with identity theft growing up just through time. This is each age effect, GB nature. Correlation nature is trinity. They're going to hurt you no matter where you are, even if they help you for money. We're in a value nature system that's sick. That's why no one is allowed to speak for correlation. See how they have the people stack in Hartford, New York City, but they have a river right there. You can suck that water up and just have a good job back down, make energy, grow things, make an infrastructure that doesn't fall down. You see what I'm saying? Called science clown, dunce to the rear. Tell campus now, campus Marcius. Eyes just out. Campus Marcius calls you home to game. We'll train. For real. If Hartford, if one person wants to keep it real, we can force evolution. They can't deny it because we're going to ask for beliefs. As I try to tell on Facebook to Reverend Minister Farrakhan, because he's asking for reparations, which I believe are due. But if you're moving for the reparations, you're a language that can't ask for it, right? You have to be a nature that's, in other words, that's ask. Yeah, we have to ask for the reparations. I mean, for reliefs, to admit there's a inherent active and progressive problem upon all areas and upon all states and per interbranch roles with a crime method recorded, demonstrable. We need people to follow the rules, fix the fake news, where that steals our voice to fake conversations, fake pretended beliefs, ill convictions and physical delusions, interbranch drug clicks, evidence fabrication natures, child offender clicks, recorded, proven already, and further, because they're retired and standing, also with their state judicial branch offices, with two people in the Fienza family and woman tied to them, recorded and confessed involved with crimes with interbranch, retired and standing since leading up to that for years. But I don't know them. I only know them in the context of their profession about that. Then that confirmed on Facebook and with threats to deny what is recorded anyways, per their roles with crimes with interbranch and foreign and domestic overt criminal enterprises and child offender cliques with people their ties to Detective Dillon. They recorded and confessed also involved with them, and a 2-route highway and house across the street recorded and confessed involved South Sevilla with other people with CIA narratives, pretending I was talking about CIA. Their roles with identity thefts. See, we have people that are interbranch, high positions that have not legitimate. So we have former director of the FBI with crime roles recorded with his co-defendants. One of them had a daughter in my grade. Another one lived in Newington where Eric Jensen lived. They put him in my class. They have these people tied to my neighbors. They can't speak truth. They can't pretend what they need to pretend in the background up forward. So if Hartford wants to have a conversation, wants to end and force evolution right now and bring immediate reliefs or any area, all we have to do is say who's denying, who disbelieves this is true. Because it's recorded true. I tell you to. Yes.